I've been to Key West the last 2 years, and if you know the slew of gorgeous women that I surround myself with, then you know there's an absolute dread about getting into a bathing suit and how your body looks compared to everyone else. In fact, based on how I've changed over the last year, I should have been even more worried. But strangely enough, I wasn't. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, but how? How did you overlook all that and still feel confident? What magic pill did you take, Annie? And how much is it going to cost me, right? There's no way that I can do that. But all I have to say to you, babe, is yes, you can. That's the amazing thing. Everyone can do it. All it takes is want and willingness. Hey there, gorgeous, and welcome to the Influence Over 40 podcast. I'm your host, 𝐤𝐞𝐭'𝐬, and this is your go-to podcast for navigating the empty nest era with confidence and entrepreneurial spirit. I'm that crazy dog mama adjusting to life after kids and quite honestly, still trying to figure out what I want to do for a living. I'm a former boutique owner and seasoned mompreneur, and this show is dedicated to empowering women just like me, over 40, to embrace their unique journeys and thrive in the digital age. Join me for inspiring discussions on confidence building tips, mindset work, social media strategies, and how to be successful as an introvert and essential business tools. I'll also give you the real scoop on whether I think the latest and greatest digital way to make money is the real deal or a huge waste of time and dollars. Whether you're looking to reinvent yourself or take your business to new heights, I'm here to help you chase your dreams and be unapologetically and authentically yourself online. Follow the Influence Over 40 podcast and don't miss out on all the valuable tips and tools to make your business journey and 2.0 era easier. Hey, gorgeous. Welcome back. It's Annie here, your host of the Influence Over 40 podcast, and I'm so glad that you came back. I took a couple of weeks off, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. Last week, of course, I was on vacation, so I really was just trying to be in the moment, spend time with my husband, have a good time with our friends. So I didn't have a podcast topic for last week, but the week before, honestly, I was a little bit in a creativity slump, I'll call it. I am digging more into my human design, and as my human design, part of that is the fact that I get creative urges, and I just wasn't necessarily feeling that urge about something that I could really come on and talk to you about. So it has been a couple of weeks, but I am back and definitely passionate about the topic that I'm going to talk to you about today. So yes, you heard that I've been to Key West, and yes, you heard that, the whole, basically, if you heard that I was into a bathing suit and it made you cringe, then I can understand that feeling. As women, we are so completely tough on ourselves, and I am no different. And however, this year I really have tried to be more aware of the self-talk that I'm doing to myself. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today, because it has made a big difference for me. And I'm going to kind of give you that whole particular journey. So, this time last year, we went to Key West. We went to Key West again with our friends. And at that point in time, I literally closed the doors to my store. And then the very next day, we shot off to Key West, driving down there. And so I had a lot of thoughts, a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings going into that particular trip. But the one thing that I didn't necessarily have to feel or didn't have a particular way that I felt about was how I looked. At that particular time a year ago, I would say I'm probably about 10, maybe 15 pounds lighter. I'm not one that typically looks at the scale. I really just kind of gauge, how I feel in my clothes or how the clothes fit. If you know that denim the last several years, we had more 100% cotton or like 99% cotton come back into style. And that particular pair of denim, there's no hiding in anything in those. You gain a pound, you're going to know it in those particular pants. And so I have a lot of those in my closet. So I do know that trying those on, that I'm like, oh, okay, I've had maybe one too many cookies and several too many, probably mimosas. And so the last year, I really have probably added some extra pounds from all of those cookies and mimosas. Definitely the food I've been eating, I've just not really held back on a whole lot of things. So I definitely could feel that in the clothes that I'm wearing. So I know that I was more overweight this year than I knew that I was last year. Last year I felt very confident in my body. I felt very good about it. However, mentally going into that vacation, I was not as good of a place because I had just sold my business. I had just shut the store down. I was feeling extremely, honestly, if I believe I talked about this in the last podcast, that I really kind of felt like a failure, and I really had no one to talk to about that. Nobody was in my particular situation that I felt like could understand it. My husband didn't understand it. I don't really feel like my friends could really understand how I was feeling in that. And while it was my decision to close the store, it was my decision to sell the store, I still felt a little bit as though I was a failure. And I don't think from the outside looking in that anybody would think that, but that's absolutely how I felt. So on the outside, I definitely felt confident about how I looked. On the inside, definitely a lot of lack of confidence going into that vacation. So fast forward to this year, and it's a little bit of a different situation. So I still had some of the same inside feelings as far as not completely confident about, where I am in my life, where I am in this entrepreneurial journey, because it is something that I keep just trying new things to figure out what it is exactly that I do love and what I really connect with. And I'm still having those kind of thoughts about myself. But then you add on the fact that my body on the outside has physically changed to a point where I'm not really super happy with either. It can come into like this huge, obviously depression, basically, is for lack of a better word. Well, so, going into this vacation, I knew that I was going to be around my friends that are all beautiful and they're all gorgeous. And, they are very, I will say most of them are very open and free. They want to have a good time. They don't mind wearing things that are very revealing because they're all gorgeous, obviously. And as they should be and as they should feel in what they are wearing and doing. And I love that about them. And I think it gives me the courage to feel that way more about myself as well. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm fixing to I want to be in the mix with this too. I don't want to feel left out. I don't want to feel like I'm wearing too many clothes. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, but there is a time and place where you're like, okay, well, I'm a little bit overdressed. I got a little bit more on than everybody else does. So I kind of want to look like they do. And so I had ordered some very skimpy bathing suits, and my plan was to wear them. Well, I had to mentally get right to be able to do this, because I realized that the thoughts that are going through my head, while I'm not saying them out loud necessarily all the time, they are definitely swirling around my head. What's swirling around is, you're thicker than you are last year, Annie, and your hips are, really big. And, I've had a breast lift, and so I have some scars on the side that kind of stick out, didn't heal as well as I would have hoped. I've had a tummy tuck. So while I might have some flat stomach, I have these dog ears on the side because, unless you're doing it all the way around your entire body, like that tummy tuck's got to stop somewhere. So if you still got fat on the back, you got what they call a dog ear right there. And when I shimmy and shake, that little dog ear shakes, and that may not be the visual that you wanted, but there it is. So, these are things that are all going through my head, on top of the fact of, my skin has changed since I've been older. The texture is different. They say, I've always said, tan fat is better than white fat, which it is, and I agree with that. However, it's still, when you get older, it still doesn't cover everything. And so having the cellulite on the back of my thighs and my butt, and not to mention how skimpy the bathing suits have gotten, I was fixing to show a lot of booty cheek, and that just is what it is. And I got no acetol disease, y'all. Like my back literally just goes straight down into my butt. And so I, I'd probably started going to the gym about 6 weeks prior to the vacation, but I'm not definitely consistent in that in any way, shape, or form. So the number of exercises that I did, it did nothing to help that situation. So, there's definitely more that I could have done, but I didn't. So the whole point is I'm like, okay, so I've really got to change how I'm speaking to myself, because this is for sure not happening. And when I talk a little bit more about the human design, I'm very into the woo-woo. So I hope this somewhat makes sense to you, or that if you haven't heard of that before, that, something you might want to check into. But my human design is a manifester. And so part of that manifesting is speaking out loud to the universe, using my voice, which actually podcasting is great for me based on my whole human design. And that's all very important. However, you do have to be careful, because what you are actually thinking, what you are saying out loud, you are saying out loud maybe to the universe, but you're also saying it to yourself. And those words, what you are saying, is in fact going to create your reality. So if you are constantly saying things that are negative to yourself about yourself, guess what? You're going to continue to focus on the negative things about yourself. You're going to also continue to get negative things about yourself. You are literally putting those thoughts into existence. And in my deep dive into whether it's the human design, or I like to do a lot of self-development. That's something that definitely fuels my soul, is doing that self-development and learning new things. And that's clearly something that I learned a long time ago. And even though I learned it a long time ago, it's kind of one of those things, if you don't use it, you lose it, and you forget about these things. And so one of the self-development things that I had been looking into, which is the human design, a book that I was reading, is talking about this same fact. It says, thought is, thought creates. It's the same thing. What you speak becomes reality. And I'm like, wow, like, when those things, sometimes you're in that zone where you're ready to learn or hear that particular message. And it's like you've heard it before, but for whatever reason, you're in the zone right now and you're really ready to receive it. Well, that's where I was. And so probably about that 6-week mark, I'm guessing, about the same time I thought I was going to go get a booty at the gym, I came across that particular statement again. Thought is, thought creates. And it really hit me differently this time. I'm like, wow, like, I really need to think about this and think about what it is that I am saying to myself. So one of the things that I was saying to myself, or talking about to myself specifically, were my lips. I had decided that I was going to go get lip injections. I really wasn't happy with the way my lips look. When you get older, you lose collagen obviously in your skin, and your lips tend to, they fall down. They like disappear. They literally disappear into your mouth. It's not funny. It's really not funny, but it is. And so that was one of the things that I had decided that I was going to do. But then I started listening to another podcast, and they were really talking about, maybe that you don't want to go do those things until you are at a point in time where you are happy with yourself. Because if you're not happy with yourself and you go and do these things, is that in fact really going to make you happy? And I was like, wow, like, with the whole thought is, thought creates, and then that particular statement too, both combined together really started making me think, well, do I want to do that? If I do that, in fact, do my lips, is that in fact going to really make me happier with myself? And I started thinking about it, and it's not the first time. I've done the lip injections before, but it's been, more than 5 years ago that I had done that. And so I decided to look and find some of the pictures that I remember taking during that time frame. And, I started looking at these pictures and I'm like, I'm really just not super crazy about how that looks. And I started thinking about, the whole procedure, and remembering that the way my body metabolizes this particular, thing that I'm putting in, it doesn't last a long time. It's extremely expensive. Like, is that really what I want to do? Is that really going to make me feel better about going down here and being in pictures and, hanging around my friends or being in these particular bathing suits? And I decided it's not like, that's not what's going to make me happy. And so I decided that the only thing that really can make me happy is, one, making a change in myself to change my particular body, or two, the way that I speak to myself, because I can choose to be happy, or I can choose to pick out everything about myself that I can't stand. And if those are my two choices, why would I ever choose the one that says pick out all the things you can't stand about yourself? Like, who wants to live like that? And when I really took it down to that, like just broke it down all the way down to that particular question, I'm like, well, duh, this is a no-brainer. Why would I want to live like that? Why would I treat myself like that? Why would I want to constantly talk to myself in such a negative manner? And so for me, it just kind of clicked. And so I decided to do something about that. And I decided just to kind of make a few changes that I'm going to talk to you about in just a second. But before I do that, I want to talk to you a little bit about, where this all comes from, first of all. It's not like we just wake up one day and decide to start speaking negatively to ourselves. It comes from everywhere. Every thought, every feeling, every experience that we've had is formed. It's based on, the people that raised us. It's based on, if you went to church or not. It's based on the schools, your teachers, all of these particular things are what help us form our opinions. Those are all experiences that help form us. And when I started to think about it, I started to think about like my mom, like, what was my mom like? Was my mom, did I hear her saying things that maybe were not great about her body? Did I see her looking at the scale constantly? Did I see her really determining, what she ate versus what she didn't eat? How do I recall her her speaking to me? And when I really started to think about that and how I grew up, I don't recall her being super negative by any means, but if the situation came up, she is more of a glass half full, no, a glass half empty, sorry, getting my metaphor confused, a glass half empty versus a glass half full type of a person. And so when I recall her growing up, I don't ever recall her like saying that she felt beautiful about herself. I recall her, not necessarily liking her body or being happy with her body. I recall her being on the scale and feeling like, she's, a few pounds too heavy and she needs to lose some weight. I don't recall her being overly confident or confident at all, honestly, in how she looked, like not wanting to really be in pictures ever. And it really made me sad. It really made me sad from the adult me looking back, thinking about the fact that my mom was never truly happy or joyous in how she felt about herself. It made me really sad. And it really made me think about, okay, so what have I done when my kids were little to impact them that way? And I started thinking about it and I'm like, I did the same thing. I probably was in the exact same pattern that she was in. I probably was never really happy with how I looked and how my body looked. And how I felt if I was pretty enough. Now, don't get me wrong. I will take a selfie in a heartbeat. However, if I am really being honest, like I'm faking it. I'm faking the fact that I feel pretty. I'm faking the fact that I feel confident. And there is this mindset of, fake it until you make it. And I agree to that to some degree. But at some point, you've really got to stop and say, okay, what is really going to make me happy? What really will make me happy? And not just happy, but like, what is my joy? Where can I get joy from? Because joy, that true feeling of joy, if you have not felt the true feeling of joy, if you need to feel the true feeling of joy, like there's nothing like it. And so I equate it to my dogs. When I talk about and I should probably say my children too, and I do. I love them unconditionally, of course. Of course I love them unconditionally. But I think more probably about my dogs than I do the kids, because the way that I speak to them and the joy, the absolute sheer joy that they bring to my life is like none other. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of day I've had. It doesn't matter how badly I'm feeling about myself. When I have one of them, I pick them up, I hold them, I tell them I love them, or they come and curl up with me on the couch and I pet them. Like, that to me is true joy. And that feeling feels so good. I'm like, why wouldn't I not want to feel that all the time? Why would I why would I love that suffering more than I love pleasure and feeling good? And I don't want to feel that way anymore. So it's literally a conscious decision that I made to change all of that. And I'm going to tell you how I did that. So a little bit about what I did. Again, I've told you that I love self-development. I love all of that. And I do a lot of the journaling. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books, take courses, all of those different things. And so for sure, what I have learned over all of those different things is taking what you're saying to yourself and reframing it, turning it around. Let's take that negative and turn it into a positive. And so the one that I think probably is the easiest for most people to relate to is saying things like, I can't do that. I'm too broke to do that. I can't afford to go on that vacation, or it must be nice to go on that vacation. I wish I could afford that. A lot of it comes down to that, but also, a lot of women are saying the same things to themselves as far as, I don't look pretty, or I'm ugly, or my face is too wrinkly, or my butt is too big, or my hips are too big. I can't fit into that. And instead of saying all those things, we got to find a way to reframe those statements so that you can start to believe these things that you're telling yourself instead. And sometimes there's some baby steps to that. So like, I would reframe the whole I'm broke. Instead of saying I can't afford that, I'm broke, I may say I'm choosing not to do that at this particular time because this is more important right now. Or I'm choosing not to take that vacation right now because I'm saving to take it next year. Or I'm not aligned with that particular vacation. I'm more aligned with saving for this at this particular time. Because for your brain to go from I can't afford it, I'm broke, to I got all the money in the world, like, there's kind of a disconnect there, right? Like, you can't jump from point A to point B exactly. Some of you may be able to, but sometimes you might need a little baby step goal. And so that's a way to reframe that. If it is such as, I don't think that I'm that pretty, or my body is ugly, my body is too big, you got to find ways to reframe that. And so first you got to find reason as to why that's not true. So as far as I was talking about, like my hips, I have big hips. As a matter of fact, I had somebody one time, you're not going to believe this. I had somebody one time literally say to me that, you do have big hips, but those are like, you got good birthing hips. Those are good for birthing. And I was like, what are you talking about? But thinking on it now, I'm like, well, that's right. That's actually a good thing. Like, that is a great thing. I gave life with these hips. These hips are big because I was able to create an entire new life. Mind blown. That's insane. I created life. My hips created life. They are perfect just the way they are. Not only that, my hips allow me to walk. They are what helps my legs move, right? Without my hips, I couldn't move my legs. And so if I couldn't move my legs, I couldn't go from point A to point B. And I'm so incredibly thankful that I have the ability to walk and to get anywhere that I need to go. So those are two reasons that I should be very thankful for these big hips. And so that's just kind of one way, and maybe that feels a little bit silly, but that's okay. But it's just things like that you have to think of to be able to reframe those thoughts. So first you got to figure out, why, what is a reason why it's not true? So those are my reasons why it's not true. One, it allows me to create another human being. Two, it allows me to walk around everywhere. Then you want to reframe that thought. And so instead of saying my hips are too big, I want to say something like, my hips are perfect just the way they are. I don't have to say I love my hips. I just have to say my hips are perfect just the way they are. My hips are sensual. My husband loves my hips. My hips, you know what my hips do? They give my favorite dress the perfect hourglass figure. I mean, those are things that my hips do for me, and those are ways that I can reframe that. And you can have a ton of fun with that. Like, you should have absolutely the most fun with it. The sillier it can be, the more, I think fun and joy that you'll get out of that. And if you're having fun with it, you'll tend to keep doing it. The next thing that I did is I found proof. So I remember we went to an event, it's been a couple of months ago, and I ordered a dress, and it was a figure. It was a form-fitting dress. And when I put that dress on, I literally felt good about myself. And so I'm like, I love that picture of me. And my hips, they do not lie in that dress. Y'all, I got some big hips. But you know what? It did exactly what I said it did. It gave me an hourglass figure, and I love it. And so I found that picture. That is proof to me. I walk around the house. I kick my legs up. I stretch. That's all proof to me and to my subconscious that these hips are perfect just the way they are. I do sexy shimmies and kind of dance in the mirror in front of myself and run my hands over my hips, because that's all getting back to that love for myself. And again, I know it probably sounds really crazy, really ridiculous, very silly, but doing this over and over again really started to change my thought pattern. And it changed my thought pattern so much, y'all, that when it came time to get into these tiny bikinis that showed a ton of skin, and matter of fact, high cut, I've never been a high cut girl, but I pulled them up. I pulled these bikini bottoms up over my hips, showing my dog ears. And I looked in the mirror and I honestly felt good about myself. I looked at that mirror and I thought, dang, girl, you are looking good. And while it was the same body that 6 weeks earlier I did not feel good in, when I put those on after going through this with myself, I really and truly felt good about it. And it is only that power of what I'm saying to myself, stopping that negative self-talk, that changed. That's honestly the only thing else that changed. Now, does that mean that I don't still want to possibly go to the gym or, eat better to try to lose weight? Absolutely not. I still want to do those things. I want to be healthy. I could probably stand to lose a few pounds, and that's fine. But right now it's coming from a place of love and not a place of disgust. And so to kind of segue that into, because this is a podcast that I do talk about confidence and mindset tips and obviously business too. This applies to business as well. When I had the boutique, I was in that comparison game a lot because you want to follow other people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, just one to kind of make sure you're keeping up, keeping up with the trends and the things that people are doing, which is good, but it also can be very harmful because you can get into that comparison-itis. And so definitely you have to be careful with that. And so with business, it's the exact same process. You need to tell yourself, I'm a badass boss. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm great with money. I'm great with marketing. I have fantastic social media feed. I know exactly how to take pictures. I know all of my angles. When I take pictures, I know exactly how to help all my customers. My customers love me. These are all the things that you need to be saying to yourself rather than saying all of the opposite. And I know you already know what that is. That's the I'm not great with money. Nobody wants to come buy from me. I don't know how to do anything on social media. I don't know how to relate to my customers. I don't know what to buy anymore. Like, those are all the things that you've got to get rid of from your vocabulary if you want any chance of turning things around. And I promise you, it's not magic. It's not going to happen overnight. But when you start to catch yourself getting into that pattern, doing something, jogging yourself out of that pattern, whether it's a snap, a flick of the wrist, or whatever it is that you catch yourself and you're like, okay, hold on, let's reverse that, because even though you've already put it out there, you can change it. That it's not absolutely one and done. You get the chance to redo, change it up, fix it, make it right, and get into a better headspace. And that's really kind of what it comes down to. And so I think that the whole point of all of it is making sure that it is understanding that your thought, in fact, does create reality. And you've got to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you either. And so the first step is making sure that you, in fact, believe in yourself. It's so, so very important. And so I really just wanted to come on here and kind of, talk to you a little bit about that. I made a post on my Facebook where I, went through this whole scenario, and I went a little farther on Facebook with it. And I posted some of my bikini pictures. Like, honestly, that's not typically me. I would not typically do that, but I felt it was important that people could understand. And I pointed out every bad thing about myself. Like, anything that you possibly could tell me was wrong with these pictures, I can point it out myself and show you first. And most women are all like that. But it wasn't that I was trying to point those things out. I wanted to point it out and let you know that I recognize it, but here's how you can reframe it. And it's not important for just you. It's important for everyone else that is around you, especially your kids. I was actually talking to my son a little bit about that today, and, just saying, I wish that I knew some of the things, some of the things that I know now. I wish, obviously, that I knew when he was younger, because I would have done things differently. I would have spoken to him in a way that built more, self-confidence, rather than, instilling in him some of the lack of confidence that I had. I would have just filled him up. And I think probably we think as moms that we naturally do that. But if you really sit and think about how you speak, to your kids, do you come from a place, we all come from a place of love. I'm not doubting that whatsoever. But do you come from a place of possibly fear? And when they tell you something they're excited about, you're like, oh, that's cool, but don't forget this, or think about this, or, maybe you should do this. And I think so much about how I did that so many times to him. Instead of just being super excited with him and going with it, I wanted to, give him and caution him of all the things that he needed to think about before maybe he made this decision, or he did this or did that. And I thought that was a great thing. And I don't think that it's a bad thing, but I think the way I would have gone about it would have been different if I knew then the things that I know now. And so we talked a little bit about that. And I told him, I try that now with him. I definitely try to, when he's telling me these things, I remain very positive and tell him all the ways of how it is absolutely going to work out. I don't bring up how it's not going to work out. If he is concerned about something, or he's bringing it up to me saying, I'm worried about X, Y, and Z, then I'll talk through why, you have a valid reason to be concerned about X, Y, and Z. But if he brings something to me and he's super excited about it, even though the back of my head, I'm thinking, there could be this and this and this that you need to worry about, I'm like, no, I'm going with this excitement, and I'm going to build him up. I'm going to pump him up. I'm going to push him to be extremely confident about this, because if I do that, then he's going to be confident about it. And when he's confident about it, the chances of it going wrong, slim to none, honestly. Like, there are going to be outside forces and things that happen. But for the most part, if he's confident about it, it's going to work out. It's absolutely going to work out for him. And so I think it's so very important to do that, not just for yourself, but also, for your relationships, whether it's relationships with your kids, relationships with your spouses, relationships with your friends. It's so very important for all of us to make sure that we're choosing joy, we're choosing to be happy, we're choosing to speak to ourselves with kindness, rather than, disgust, basically, because I think as a society, that's probably where we have somewhat come to. And so it is absolutely a choice. And so every day, this is what I'm deciding to choose. I'm deciding to choose happy, to think that I'm pretty, to think that I'm smart, to know that I'm resourceful, to, know that I'm creative, to know that I'm a badass entrepreneur, to know that I'm confident, and most important, to know that I'm enough. Everything that I am doing is enough, whether it's enough for my business, enough for my relationship, enough for my kids, enough for my friends. It's enough. It is absolutely enough. And so I'm choosing that joy every single day. And my hope for you is that you are also going to choose that joy for yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this. I know I went completely off script today for the most part, and kind of might have gone on a tangent a little bit, something a little different, but I felt very strongly that I wanted to talk to you women about this, especially the women that listen to this podcast that are over 40, over 45, because life just gets more difficult. You think when your kids are young, you were like, oh man, when my kids are older, it's going to be so much easier. I got news for you. It's not. It just gets more difficult. They're just different things that are going to be difficult than the things that were difficult when you were younger. So, I really hope for you that you choose joy, and I thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye. If you like this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you rate, subscribe, and review this podcast. It really helps push my podcast out to other female entrepreneurs and women over 40 wanting to start a business. I'm so glad that you spent this time with me today. I love y'all so much. Mwah.